another episode of Primos Chidos. I am your host, Jules, and of course, I am here with the boys, Steve and Brandon. Say what's up, you guys.
What's up, dude?
What's up? What's up?
So, for today, as y'all see, our title, it's called Addressing the Controversy.
Yeah.
um, I guess, Brandon, would you like to explain what's been going on?
Yeah, I guess I have to address the elephant in the room, right?
Mhm.
People took some offense to some comments I made on our last episode.
Mhm.
Um, sorry, I'm a little nervous. My first apology. So,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Won't be your last.
yeah, it won't be my last. Um, so I
So,
made
what
a.
did you do, Brandon?
Yeah.
guess-
Okay, break it down for me. Where did you go wrong?
Where did I go wrong? I
Yeah.
guess I made a really bad joke. I'm not a comedian, so sorry. Um,
Mhm.
People didn't think it was a joke,
Yeah.
so
People, you
uh,
made fun of the cartels, beloved
I
people.
yeah, exactly.
Their fans had a huge
Their
backlash.
fans, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you just I can't talk shit. I mean, I wasn't even really talking shit. I just made a playful, lighthearted joke, and I guess people got
Mhm.
really mad. I guess
Yeah.
I got hit with the racism and ignorant
Yeah.
allegations.
Damn.
People hitting you hard. What do you think about it actually, dude? What do you
All right. And in all seriousness, I do sincerely apologize if I did offend anybody. That was not my intent. I don't want to invalidate anybody's feelings.
Mhm.
I understand people feel strongly about their culture and their countries. I understand that people from Mexico and of indigenous descent have experienced a lot of racism and a lot of struggles in their life. So I can understand why when they hear something that they feel is a little bit what would you say? I guess
ignorant?
ignorant, that they would take offense. So
Mhm.
I'm sorry if that's the reaction that you received. That's not what I intended. I was just messing around. And to be frank, I was just saying I personally, I didn't say anybody shouldn't go to
Yeah.
Mexico. If you want
Yeah.
to go to Mexico, by all means go. I was
Support.
just playing.
Yeah.
I'd love to go to Mexico.
What?
What?
Holy shit! It's all coming out right now.
Yeah. So
Okay, talking about it like for reals, right? Talking about because
Yeah.
it wasn't on Instagram, it was on TikTok. We got like over 200 comments of people saying that like, first of all, they were calling like me and my sister racial slurs, which I'm like, I mean, like
right.
two wrongs don't really make a right,
Well,
you
right,
know?
because it's like, oh, you're being ignorant, and then they call you a slur. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I guess that makes things better.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
a negative and a negative make a positive. Is that what you're
Yeah.
thinking?
Well, I think it's so weird because any other country that gets criticism, yeah, there's always people who kind of defend it. But it is funny how, at least as a Latino, as a Mexican, I've been a Mexican my whole life.
Yeah.
And I've noticed
And
that
you don't
How
think
many
you'll stop
years,
anytime
dude?
soon?
How many years?
I don't think I'll stop anytime soon. Yeah. But I've noticed that the Mexican culture is very like used to the status quo. They don't really
Mhm.
like anything going against tradition. That's what I've always
Mhm.
seen. Um, and it makes sense. I mean, Mexico's been the same way for a lot of years. They don't. If you look at the political climate of Mexico, a lot of them don't like addressing like racial issues, which is to me is like such a big thing because I can't really hide what I look like.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
I'm not very white passing.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's so weird that like if you make comparisons, right? Let's say you look at the enemy of a Mexican guy here in the United States. Let's say you say it's this like Republican conservative guy, right? Like wears
Mhm.
the American flag as a shirt, is like
Make
all
America
for
great again,
yeah,
hat,
make
all
America
that
great
stuff.
again. Is a very patriotic guy. Now let's say we change all that for like a Mexican guy who does the exact same thing. The Mexican guy is the guy who won't get like the backlash. Is
Yeah.
is the guy who like everybody's like, yeah, like Viva Mexico, like I'm a proud like Mexicano. And to me, I guess I get a little confused because to me it just sounds like blind patriotism.
Mhm.
And growing up, you learn that like it's basically such a bad thing. I mean, that's how you dehumanize like other people, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
become such like a nationalist.
Mhm.
And I guess like I said, I have a lot of experience being Mexican, and I always get so confused as to why is it not okay for somebody to be a proud like red, white, and blue like USA
Mhm.
American, but it's okay for someone to be a proud like green, white, and red, like
Yeah.
Mexicano.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, because
go ahead.
I agree with Stevie because I'm like you see a lot of them be like super like patriotic of Mexico, right? But Mexico is like kind of like no different from like the U.S. of like how like corrupt the government is and like how racist Mexico is too. Like there's white Mexicans, there's a lot of indigenous people, there's Afro Latinos, there's also Asian Mexicans, like people,
Yeah.
especially the Asian Mexicans
Like
do not
one right
yeah,
here.
they do
Mhm.
not get recognized at all. Like not until recently did like Afro Latinos or Afro Mexicans, whatever you want to call them, or however they identify, not until recently did they finally get that identification like of Afro Latino.
Yeah.
Because it was always like Latino this, Latino that.
Yeah.
And they still put them in the spectrum, but it was like they didn't identify in that. So that's why it became Afro Latino. And then people don't also see that there's also Asian like Latinos, there's Asian Mexicans, or I don't know the proper term because there's not really a term yet, I
Mhm.
guess. But it's like it's there too.
Yeah.
Like it's there and there's racism within it. And it's like people don't recognize that. Like people don't recognize that a lot of like even like religion is like the big thing of like Mexico. Like Mexico is very Catholic. And religion was put on a lot of like the indigenous people because the indigenous people believed in like gods, like different
Yeah.
gods, gods of water, gods of sun, and all that. And like eventually, like they got colonized.
Mhm.
And then that's how mestizos came because it's the same thing as
Yeah.
America. Like it was the whole thing of like wanting to have the white like supremacy, and it's like
Yeah.
people don't see that. Like people don't
Yeah.
see like
The faults in the country. Because
yeah,
well, above all else, it wasn't even like you were criticizing Mexico.
Yeah.
yeah.
It was literally just us fucking around. And if you want to say that you were criticizing anybody, you're criticizing the cartels, which are
Yeah.
like the bad guys, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is like
It
I didn't know that was such a sensitive topic. I didn't know people. I mean, you know,
people were
Yeah.
just such
but
big fans of the cartel.
just to double down, I wasn't criticizing Mexico. I wasn't criticizing anybody who goes to Mexico.
Mm.
I started off saying I personally,
Yeah.
and then I don't know if you could tell in the clip, but we were kind of laughing. So that kind of implies we were messing around.
Mhm.
We're being a little more serious about it now because obviously it touched a nerve with people.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I feel like
And it yeah.
there were so many things being said in the comment section that I was like, you guys are, in my opinion, so like interpreting this wrong,
Mhm.
and also like thinking the wrong things about what we're saying. First of
Yeah.
all, it wasn't even like you said, it was not a serious statement at all, and people treated it as if you went on the show
And was
were
like, this needs to be said.
Yeah.
Like, I'm tired of keeping this in.
yeah,
like,
that like
this needs to be said.
that
you
like you were
know,
telling other people like, guys, like Mexico is a criminally filled like
Yeah.
country and you guys shouldn't
cesspool
be
full
there.
of like criminal
Yeah,
everybody
which
there. Like
none of that was said, but
I
yet
didn't
people
say that
still
at all.
imply.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, why is it that there's I'm telling you, I've always seen this. Why is it that we as Mexicans, every time anybody brings up any criticism to Mexico, people get so offended,
Mhm.
as if like nothing in this world is perfect. So
Yeah.
why would this country be? And I'm telling you, it hits different for me, and I know it hits different for my sister because we're of indigenous descent,
Yeah.
and it's such a big problem in Mexico that indigenous people get the end of the stick
Yeah.
all the fucking time, man.
Yeah.
And like for people to then comment and be like, "Oh, you guys aren't Mexican. You guys aren't true Mexican." It doesn't bother me because I know my identity, and I know
Mhm.
people who are commenting are just projecting how they feel
Yeah.
because they don't feel strongly about being Mexican. So
Yeah.
they want to make other people feel less about being Mexican.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because I even was like, well, for us, like we're very, at least where my parents from, we're very indigenous, especially like my mom's side is like super indigenous. Like our grandma, she's like super indigenous too. Um, and it's like to hear like these kinds of things too. It's like also like people identifying as like very Mexican and like saying they're super how do you say like super prideful of it, but they don't think of like the history of it, of like um how it has affected like those who are indigenous. And like a lot of the people in Mexico who are indigenous are in poverty right now. Like they don't really have anything. They're like not very like educated. A good percentage of them, I think it's like 70% of them.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's like 70, and then it's like I had seen something that's like 70. It's only like 70% indigenous, and I think like a good amount of them is like living in poverty.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like how the system is, right? The
Mhm.
system is like very catered to like white Mexicans or light skins, right? Um I mean, we see it now, like, or we're hearing about it now because of like Wakanda Forever
Yeah.
and Tenoch talking about
Maybe it's
it.
that, bro. People are so pissed
Uh,
off at what the Noche is
well,
doing.
I'd also like to add that like my interpretation of how things go down down there with the cartels and stuff doesn't I didn't make that up. I mean it's from what people tell me.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
comes straight from the horse's mouth. I hear a lot of people who go to Mexico say that it's just part of what's down there. Like I understand if you keep to yourself, yes, you'll be fine. But don't you think that's a little like to a degree a little humorous that oh if
Yeah.
you mind your business I won't get killed like
Yeah.
I'm
I thought it was a lighthearted reel. I thought it was
I was
funny.
just kidding. I was
I
just
thought it was
kidding.
funny
Yeah.
too.
I mean, you guys have told me that like your parents have gone down there and have been held for ransom, right?
Yeah.
A truck or some
Yeah.
Like
money.
It
we
was it
like
was 4 black SUVs, and they told my dad that it was either his car, our car, or all the money he has on him, which is like around $500. Obviously my dad chose $500, but they
Mhm.
did steal that from my dad, you know. And if anybody in real life knows my dad's not like looking for trouble. He was
Yeah.
minding
Mhm.
his own business,
Yeah.
you know. So I think if despite everything that it is a joke, even if you had that fear, if that
Yeah.
I feel like that's such a valid fear that people can't invalidate you.
Mhm.
Because it's a
Yeah.
valid fear that I bet you a lot of like Chicanos or Mexican Americans, if they don't want to
Yeah.
identify as
Like
Chicano,
and
have.
like for
Mhm.
me it's also like okay, let's say somebody does have this real fear. Isn't that something that you shouldn't treat with like how the people treated it? Like you shouldn't treat it with like anger and resentment because isn't that kind of sad that there's people who like are afraid of going to their own country because
Yeah.
of corruption and stuff like that. It's not saying everybody there or the citizens or the culture is corrupted and a
Yeah,
cesspool of crime and all that. I'm just saying that like there's a lot of problematic things going down there.
Yeah.
uh but again, I wasn't even making this criticism to begin with. I was just messing
yeah.
around. But
I think
yeah.
I talk to my sister all the time. Is I think that like people who are Mexican American have such a huge identity crisis, and this
Mhm.
goes back like decades. I mean, we learn if you're someone from California, you learn about the Chicano movement, and the term Chicano is about Mexican Americans because they didn't feel accepted in the United States. They didn't feel accepted by Mexico. Like it goes back so many years that people who are born here, but their like parents are from Mexico,
Mhm.
they have this huge identity crisis. So what a lot of people do, in my opinion, is a lot of people kind of like identify very heavily with being Mexican,
Yeah.
as even though Mexican is not a race, it's like a
Yeah.
nationality,
Yeah.
Mhm.
obviously. So I think when people criticize Mexico or even make jokes about it, I think people take it very personally
As
Mhm.
because
if they're
they
criticizing a race.
yeah,
Yeah.
as if
Yeah.
you're saying something about like yeah, about who they are and
Yeah.
them personally.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, like personally,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
don't really think like I feel like doing those things doesn't really benefit us. Because I think it also goes back to when people
What things? Wait, what
like when
things?
you say Mexican, like, oh, I'm Mexican, like that's
Mhm.
how you identify as.
Mhm.
Or because then people when they go on about and they're like, oh, I'm Mexican, and sometimes people are like, well, you don't look Mexican.
Yeah.
And it's like, what does that mean?
Yeah,
Like,
what is what's
what is
Mexican
the
look supposed to
specific
look like?
like thing
Yeah.
of like a Mexican is supposed to look like? You know,
Yeah.
like it doesn't like that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't benefit us in that way.
Let's see, bro, if you saw me walking down the street, would you be like that guy's Mexican?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
would.
So I can't take it off. It's just
Yeah.
who I am. It's
Um
okay. I don't mind. I also think that I wish people who were Mexican identified more with being Native American. Because if you look at the history of most people who are like the stereotype Mexican, are of indigenous descent, right?
mm,
And in the comments, people were making. I'm not gonna say the word because I've heard that it's kind of racist word, but people were basically calling us, at least me and my sister, stereotypical looking Mexicans. And I told my sister, you know how you just said, like, what does that look like? I think when people think of a Mexican in their head, they think of an indigenous man or
Mhm.
indigenous woman. And so I really wish more people would identify with that more because I think that like the US has done such a good job of erasing like Native Americans that people don't even identify with them, even though it's
Mhm.
part of
mm,
their heritage,
Yeah.
yeah.
you know? And I understand it's also difficult because like, um, I don't know if you guys know about this, but in LA, there's like this big scene where people who are of indigenous descent and have educated themselves in the history of indigenous people gatekeep. and kind of put down other people who are trying to do the same. I don't know if you guys heard this. It's this
Never
big
heard of.
controversy that
Mm-mm.
I've seen from just like social media influencers who identify as indigenous. Um, so I understand it's hard because it is being gatekept, but I really wish more people would kind of like go back to their roots. And I'm not
Yeah.
talking about a nation or a government, because look at the grand scheme of everything in the world. Most governments are corrupt, most governments are bad.
Mhm.
Instead, I'd hope people go back to the culture, their roots,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's what I would really wish for people to
Yeah.
do.
But
Yeah.
that's why at least for me, like I've personally for me, I've always gone through like this identity crisis, right? Because it's like you say like here, right? They've done a good job of like the erasure of indigenous people. I mean, it's the same thing in Mexico, right? They've done a pretty good job of like kind of like separating us in that realm too. So it's kind of like in both sides for me, I'm kind of like, okay, like I can't identify for either one because either one isn't really accepting me as like a dark skinned woman. Like a lot of it, you see it in social media too, of like, or like when I used to watch novellas, right? I would see very like light skinned women. I mean, white passing women, white Mexicans. I don't know, whatever you want to
It's
call
funny
them.
because you say used to, as if that's not still actively a thing that happens right now.
Well,
You
yeah,
know?
I mean, it still is. Yeah. But it's like, wait, what did I say?
What did you say?
When did I say used to? Right
You
now?
just said that you used to see novellas and you'd see
Oh,
a lot of white
I
passing.
used to watch novellas. I don't
Yeah.
watch them anymore.
Uh-huh.
But like that's how I would see them. Like, and then you would see like the brown girl or the very dark skinned and like Latina, and she was like a maid or something,
Hmm.
or she was like the one who was like taking care of like the kids or something like that.
Yeah.
That's how you would kind of see it on TV. And I never realized that when I was
Hmm.
growing up. Like I didn't really think much about it until I grew up, and then I
Yeah.
was kind of like, okay, like I see it. And then sometimes you would see like the main actress was Latina, but she was also like French or something. Like,
Hmm.
yeah.
Dude, a lot of the chicks who like play actor roles on novellas in Mexico are from like Europe,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is like so backwards, man.
Yeah.
Like, and then where is the representation for all the little kids who grew up? Because I'm telling you, for me, it was only George Lopez. That's
Yeah.
the only guy that I saw when, growing up, that I was like, holy shit, like I look just like him, I look
Mhm.
Mhm.
just like him.
Mhm.
But he wasn't like my, I guess you could say, Chris Evans or
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
Chris Pratt or whoever,
Yeah.
like I guess Americans look up to when they see a white man. But I never
Yeah.
really had anyone like that. I hope Denoch is like that. But you told me he doesn't really identify as indigenous, right?
He just says he's not very in touch with that side of the culture, so he doesn't
Okay,
like identify, but he doesn't discourage anybody from
wanting to do
From
from
that,
what
wanting to
right?
do that. Yeah. But yeah.
Have you ever had an identity crisis, or have you always just been like, I am what I am?
I mean, I don't know about identity crisis. I don't know. I if you had to if somebody asked me what I identified as like racially, I don't know that I have an answer.
Hmm.
Because I feel like I understand like blood and stuff like that, but as I get older, I feel like a big part of racial identity is the experience, how people treat you and stuff like that. So like if I was to say that I like even as a kid, right? If I was to say like oh I'm Mexican, right? That's more of a nationality, and even then I don't really look it. And I think that's a big part of it, like how people treat you, how you grow up, the experience, all that stuff that I think builds what we call race and stuff. So for me, it's kind of difficult. So it's kind of
I
it
get
is
what you
what you
mean.
get what I'm trying to get
Yeah.
at. But yeah,
It's funny because I feel like you are kind of describing in a way like an identity crisis, but not a conscious, like it fucks you up every day. You wake up
yeah,
and you're like,
Mhm.
fuck, like what am I?
yeah,
It's more of like, well, I've never really felt like this defines me or this defines me.
yeah,
So I've never really tried to,
yeah,
which I kind of fuck with too. I
yeah,
mean, we're talking about race and nationality, but I think that if we're going spiritual realm, right? If we're
yeah,
going like spiritual, maybe is the wrong term, but if we're going more on a personal right of like self growth, I think you just got to be yourself, and you can't, these terms kind of limit you,
Mhm.
yeah.
saying like, oh,
Oh
I'm
yeah,
Latino or
for sure.
Latinx or I'm like this, that. I think I've always thought labels and terms limit you and what you can do.
Yeah, for sure.
um that's why it's so hard, because I think a lot of Latinos who rise up in like Hollywood, I think a lot of them get typecast. Like a lot of them like, oh, he's a Latino guy. We'll put him here and here. And it's one of those things that's so frustrating, because I wish you could just go into Hollywood and do any role that you want to do. But
Mhm.
then like immediately you're like, well, we need this Mexican guy here,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Do you think as somebody who is from like an ethnic background, because we're all from, I guess you could say, like like minority backgrounds, um do you think it's valid that people try to play upon that in order to get success? Do you get what I mean?
Mm.
Like, let's
Mm,
say who's like a big one, let's say Houston Noch, the guy who played Namor in Wakanda Forever. Let's say he was born in the United States, right?
yeah.
Let's say but he still looks the exact same way, and he was never in touch with like his Mexican side, his Chicano side, or whatever you want to say. And then he ends up blowing up in the Wakanda Forever, and then from then on, he celebrates the culture and reps like Mexico. Is he valid in doing that, or is he invalid because he's just doing it to gain that community and that support?
That's tough, man. That's tough because it's like, well, it's what he is, you know?
Mm.
It's his background. It's who he is, you know? It's he would not exist without that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Mhm.
Even if he's not connected to it, it's where he's from, you know?
Yeah,
So for me to say, I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of, I
I
don't know
get
that
you.
I can
Yeah.
say,
I get
but
what you're saying.
you know, I get what you're saying though, that
It's
some
because I
people,
just hear it
yeah,
happen in Hollywood a lot. I hear
Mhm.
of when actors blow up big, that's when they finally start representing who they are. But
yeah,
there are people, or I wouldn't say actors, but like celebrities who do the opposite. I know. I think what's his name? Bretman Rock. I think that's his name. Bretman Rock. He's
Oh,
like this makeup
Bretman?
guy.
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
Bretman.
I know he's Filipino, and he went on a podcast or an interview, and they
Mm,
asked him like, "Oh, how does it feel to be like a Filipino like influencer?" And he said like, I've honestly never thought of it. Like, I've never thought of myself as like, oh, I'm a Filipino influencer, or I'm a Filipino creator. I've just thought like I'm just Brett Man, I'm
mm,
just me, like,
mm,
because I think he said the same thing. He said, I feel as though when you get typecasted in these terms, you get so limited, and people only see you as
Mhm.
that thing,
Yeah.
yeah.
which alienates other people. Because
Yeah.
I like to believe, bro, the world's gonna one day just unite and be peaceful. Um,
Mhm.
and terms like this really
Mhm.
do delay that from
I
happening.
feel like it reminds me of also like when people talk about like Jennifer Lopez and how
J Lo.
she was married, I think, to Mark Anthony, and I think they're both Puerto Rican, and I think she used to be very like she tried to like kind of separate herself from being Puerto Rican up until she started like coming up, and she's like, oh, I'm Puerto Rican, this, I'm a Latina like artist and all of
Hmm.
this. I don't know,
And is she
there's
valid?
something
Is she valid in doing
there's
that?
something about it that sometimes it doesn't feel very authentic sometimes, where it's kind of like you're just using it to kind of like boost you
Um,
up sometimes. And I'm not talking about specifically her. I'm talking about how you're saying
the
like with other
scenario,
artists.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
with other artists. I think sometimes it comes out just very like it's just not authentic at
Yeah.
sometimes because it's kind of like it feels, at least to me, it feels fake. Like you're kind of just using this
Okay.
term and this
I
like
can see that.
word where it's kind of like it feels like you're also invalidating like other people's experiences who haven't like come up like kind of like you.
Hmm.
um but I think that's just how I see it, because I did feel that way. I felt that way, especially when people would talk about like Selena Gomez too, because she also did that. She was like, she wasn't very like
Oh, in tune with
prideful
her
of the
culture,
yeah,
her
and tune with
heritage.
that, and up until she started like talking about it a lot more of like, oh, my mom named me after like the Tejano artist, which is Selena.
Uh huh.
And then she would be like, oh, I'm Latina and I represent this. I don't think she does it a lot, but she
Yeah.
eventually started to. I don't know up until recent if she still does it. I don't think she really does anymore.
Hmm.
um but I don't know, I think there is a little something like weird about it, where like having that label, and like having yourself be known in just like that, because it does put you in just like a category. And I get it, it's like the whole thing of like being prideful of like where you come from and stuff, and like um being in a place that like not a lot of us there is, like especially in like Hollywood and like in music or whatever, in theater or whatever it is. So I get like the pride, but sometimes it's like it does feel a little like weird about it.
So do you guys think it's important to have race and to have like nationality? No, I'm serious. Like, do you think it's honestly, and think about it in a philosophical sense? Do you think that race is this label that we should one day just like get rid of in order to like unite us? Or do you think it's important to have these terms to like, because you can't really say they'll divide us. You can
Well,
just say like, oh, I'm proud of being
I guess
this.
the reason I feel a lot of people are more inclined to be more prideful of their race is because of all the erasure that's kind of happened throughout
It's
history.
true.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like, well, all of history has spent trying to erase us, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, just leave it, because
You know,
Mhm.
it's worse to be part of a
yeah,
race.
you know.
Okay,
So
Yeah.
I
that's
can I
valid.
can understand why people are like, I don't agree, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But again, I don't know if that's for me to say, because
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, I
I mean, that
guess,
makes sense.
yeah, you could kind of argue that it's like dehumanizing in a way, because you're like, ah, you know, their people might have suffered for 800 years, but don't worry, now we're all the same.
yeah, you
You
know.
know,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's kind of what I think about when people use the term NPCs.
Mm.
Have you seen that? People have been saying like this guy's an NPC or an
Mm.
NPC.
So where does that where
I
does
feel like the NPC is non-playable character, right?
but where does that come from? Like you're a computer, right? That's
Oh,
what
This
so
it
an
comes from
means?
video
NPC
games, no?
is a term that you kind of use as like, let's say you're playing a video game, or like yeah, just basically a video game,
It's
and
like
The
the
background
players
characters,
that
yeah.
are the background characters, or let's say you're playing like there's so many games, but it's just a
Let's say you're
computer,
playing
yeah.
Grand Theft Auto, right? And
Mhm.
you're playing like as a guy, and you run into some guy on the street, and he's like, "Hey, watch where you're going, asshole."
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's an NPC.
Yeah, that's
Because
an
Mhm.
yeah,
Okay.
NPC. But it's
Mhm.
become like a super popular term that that everybody uses. Mainly like humorous, but I've seen people use it as an insult too, of
mm,
like, oh, this guy's a fucking NPC. Like he doesn't have any original thought, right?
mm.
Mm.
I think sometimes it really bugs me the wrong way, because I hate how comfortable people have gotten in calling other people NPCs.
I feel like whenever I see it on TikTok, I feel like people use it wrong.
Uh-huh.
Like it'll just be some guy chilling, and be like, "Look at this NPC." I'm like, "What's he doing though?" Like, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I don't play video games, so
Yeah.
I won't. I don't want to get hit with the ignorant allegations again.
You
Bruh.
motherfucker.
I know, right?
He's
My
talking shit on
I
the
met some of my best
streamers.
friends on GTA
Streamers
lobbies.
I've seen what happens when you make fun of, or not even make fun of, when you make a joke about the cartel. I don't even want to know what
Yeah.
happens when you make a
No,
joke
for real,
about
bro.
video games. So
That's wild.
But I would say that, because like if you in video games, NPCs are like literally the throwaway characters, like you said, the GTA
Mhm.
example. It's like it's the people you run over with your car.
or like
And,
Rob.
yeah, and the more like people live on the internet, the more people become chronically online.
Mhm.
The more I'm like, fuck, man. I feel like I really don't like people calling other people NPCs,
Mhm.
because I feel like it's just dehumanizing. And you're like, oh, this guy's an NPC. Like, who gives a fuck if I
Yeah.
like steal from him or fuck him
Mhm.
over, or like in extreme cases do the GTA and run them over.
I feel like in general, everybody's kind of getting chronically online.
Yeah.
Uh,
What is it they call that they're not being very like sympathetic anymore? Or there's a word for
Empathy?
it. There yeah. Like people aren't being like what's it called?
Nice. Or
Yeah, like nice or what's the word? There's a
empathy?
word. No, there's
Sympathy?
a word. There's a word for it.
No, I don't
People are
know.
like people just aren't nice anymore. Like
No, I'm not sure exactly what you
because
mean.
people are so stuck like being online and stuff that people aren't like seeing reality anymore. There's a word for it.
Derealization?
Hmm?
Derealization?
I don't know.
that's
It's
more
like
of a
something.
that's
I
more of a
forgot.
like that's I think that's different.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. There's a word, but I forgot. I don't
I
know
mean,
it.
in general, it feels like you can't do shit these days anymore without
Yeah.
you
And this
can't
correlates to
like
what this whole
you
episode is
can't
about.
just be a normal guy because then you're an NPC. You can't have a little fun because then you're cringe. You can't make a joke because then you're ignorant. And don't give me that shit of like, oh, there's different. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
seems like you can't really do shit
And
these
it's so
days.
funny,
You
because
know?
we all get caught up in this trap of like, man, everybody's so sensitive these days. And then just even that criticism in itself is you being sensitive to whatever is happening.
Yeah.
Right?
You know?
It's
Like,
kind of like
But I guess it's like the thing of being online and having the internet is that you have access to a lot of people and a lot of people have access to you. So you get to hear a lot of people's opinions.
it's true.
So it's kind of like
I thought about that too. I thought about if you had made that statement, like let's say you didn't even, it wasn't even a fucking statement, but let's say you had made the same joke about the cartel and like on a stand up, right? I bet you everybody there would laugh and not have a problem with it, you know?
yeah.
Mhm.
I think it's that disconnect between the
Well,
computer and screen that makes people like,
well, one thing, if I had to give a criticism about our job that we do, this podcast, is that everything you say on here sounds like a statement. Everything
oh, I get you.
sounds like no, this needs to be said. You know,
Mhm.
when for the most part, it's
Just
just
conversation.
we're just chopping it up. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just a guy. I've known these people for the majority of my life.
Yeah.
we're just having some fun and talking. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not really getting up here on a soapbox saying live your life like this or do whatever you want. I could be fucked what you do. You know,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is just entertainment for people. You know,
Mhm.
that's what I hope it
Well,
is. You
even
know,
then, it's beautiful too. I think to have conversations with people is a lost art that I think a lot more people should do. And in fact, I think people should sit down and have conversations with people that they have completely different like opinions on than
Mhm.
yourself. Because I think the only way to grow is to really meet people who are different than you.
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
then you think of these thoughts that you've never thought about, or you hear these arguments about shit you believe in. The worst thing you can do is get angry and shut people out.
yeah,
Mhm.
The worst thing you can do is you see somebody or you meet somebody and they say something you don't agree with, and you say fuck you, shut the fuck up, like get away from me. But people do it all the time online. But
yeah.
it's one of the worst things you could do, because I think you miss out on so much knowledge that you
Mhm.
never knew you could obtain.
And another thing
Yeah.
I hate that happens like online is that people like, yeah, I don't know if catastrophize is the right word, or they make things a lot bigger than they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like you know how you say like, yeah, you should talk to people who have differing opinions than you. If you were like, oh, so I should talk to a Nazi, like, come on, bro. I think he means like, I think he means like you should talk to somebody who thinks like, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think art is necessary in school. That you know,
Mhm.
that's what he means. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
uh
I
but
heard a really good point that people were saying that one thing that conservatives do is that they always neglect.
Patty with Fatty says that's why a bunch of your hate comments, people barely showed their face. I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
They wouldn't really,
I mean, even their profile pics are usually like
other
a
than like
picture of
them.
something else.
that's
Yeah.
them hiding behind the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when you're hiding behind a screen, and Mike Tyson talks about it all the time. He's like, the hiding behind a screen has made you guys too comfortable with being disrespectful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's like you guys would never say this shit in person.
No, yeah, but like, I don't know. Though this whole thing, I'm not even like mad about it in that
Yeah.
at
It's
all.
more just it's intriguing to talk about, right?
Yeah.
No, yeah, I'm just genuinely like, I really didn't think that would bother people so much. You know, I didn't. I thought I was throwing a jab at at the bad
Oh,
guy. You know,
if anything, you were throwing like a softball.
I was just throwing a lighthearted joke, and it was at the expense of some really bad people. So I thought everybody would be like, haha,
Yeah.
fuck
Yeah.
yeah. But
I
I
guess
guess
not.
I'm the bad guy.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
I think you know what it was. It was probably your painted nails. I think
Yeah.
because I'm telling
Oh,
you,
opinion
Mm.
invalidated.
yeah,
Opinion
I'm telling you,
invalidated.
the
Yeah.
internet doesn't like
I'm
when
sorry,
boys paint
Brandon.
their nails.
Thanks for
I'm
that,
Yeah,
Julie.
sorry. I
yeah.
painted
Oh,
his
you painted it
nails.
for it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's crazy.
We were
You're
we
both
were
invalid
we
then.
were
I don't have them. I don't have them
matching.
now. I don't have them now.
What happened?
It got too chipped
Yeah,
off, so
they're not coming
I
off.
took it off.
Oh, they got ugly.
Yeah. So
But isn't that more grungy, boy, to have like your painted nails?
is that
What
though?
do you think mine was
They're whatever you want them to look like.
like? Okay. There
Did
you
you
go.
do it because of Bad Bunny's changing the game
I
on
just did
what
it
boys and
because
girls can do?
He's always done it, bro. He did it before Bad
I
Bunny.
literally have always.
Oh, you know what? That's true.
I literally have always.
I have a
from-
memory of you like more than a year ago. You had painted nails. And I remember I accidentally threw you a jab by complete accident.
Yeah.
Do you remember we were watching TV and some guy
Yeah.
had painted nails?
You're like.
I was just totally making a joke of
Yeah.
like, wow, like look at his painted nails. Like he's so weird.
Well,
He's so horrific.
that's another one of those. That's another one of those things. Is like I don't like go out of my way to paint them, but sometimes my mom and my sister will go out and paint them, and I'll just be like, oh, I want to spend some time with my mom and my sister. You know,
Yeah.
it's not anything. You know, but people make it like this whole
Wow.
like
He's wholesome, bro.
this whole like statement. You know, or like when Julie painted them, it was we were just talking, just having some fun. You
Mhm.
know, it wasn't like.
I was like,
I'm-
yeah, I'm
We're-
gonna do it to rep
Well,
like
and if you want to do it for that, that's all cool. I think that's totally cool, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just one of
I
those
think
things
you
where
you should be able to freely just also do it on a
I
whim.
just feel like
Yeah.
I don't
know?
understand why you can't just do whatever you want. But you know, like just do whatever
Yeah.
you want. You know, you're all gonna die.
It's probably just. Do you remember I mentioned that there's this rise in like loneliness in the United States?
Mhm.
I think people are just extremely lonely, and with loneliness comes a lot of like depression.
Yeah.
And I think people, it's very easy when you're in a bad place to try and put other people down. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people are just in a very bad place.
Yeah.
And so
Um,
they try to put us down for having a good time and making jokes.
Yeah.
That's why they say hurt people, right?
That's true. Yeah, hurt people, hurt people.
I don't know.
Have you hurt anyone, dude?
Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe this is karma coming for me.
Oh wow.
I don't know.
You heard it's because you heard the cartel members, dude. You see what happens.
Those innocent people.
Those.
This has happened to us before. We made a joke about serial killers, the beloved people. You know.
Yeah, TikTok told us that we were bullying serial
we were
killers.
bullying them.
Oh yeah.
But I guess
Guess
you
we were
gotta
in the
protect.
wrong, you know.
You gotta protect.
So who is
everybody's
it?
feelings.
Who can you make a joke about if not murderers? Nobody?
I guess no.
Cats?
Conservatives?
No, because I mean they're not murderers though. You know, being murder.
Oh,
is
you
worse
mean
than-
what murderers can we make fun of that are
No,
valid?
I'm just saying like both of those things we're making fun of really bad people, but apparently that's wrong.
It's
So,
wrong.
See,
I guess it's like one of those things where it's like
I guess don't joke about it.
well,
bro.
Don't
you
make
know what's
jokes
very
anymore.
crazy?
serious manner.
This isn't us tripping out at all because recently Seth Rogen went on an interview and he talks about the death of the comedy movie.
Yeah.
Have you realized that comedy movies don't really come out anymore? I mean, we
Yeah.
recently saw Superbad, but do you remember when Superbad came out? At the same time, it was like Step Brothers and Pineapple
Mhm.
Express and like
this is the
yeah.
end. That was what it was
yeah,
like.
like
Yeah.
there were so many comedy movies that would come out. Now, very rarely do they come out,
Yeah.
and it's because Seth Rogen was saying that people just are so like hard to crack nowadays.
Yeah.
People are very serious and some comedy, and since comedy is so subjective, most people won't go out of their way to go see a comedy movie because they think it won't
Yeah.
make them laugh. Which in my opinion is sad because I've always liked movies and I feel like comedy movies sometimes you want to wind down for the day, put on like a
Mhm.
good comedy movie.
Well, I think
So we
I
can't laugh anymore, bro.
I think it's
People are just
important.
gonna be
Don't you think it's
sad.
important though to like have moments of levity where you don't have to take everything so serious? I mean, it's good to be aware and all that
Yeah.
stuff, but
Mhm.
like it can't be good for you to be constantly stressed out all the time, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because then you're useless, you know? But
Yeah. No, I agree. No,
Don't-
I mean
don't
you're
they also
spitting,
say,
dude.
like,
no, are you sure?
laughter?
I'm not being ignorant.
No, all right. No, you're not. I think it's really important to be humorous and to keep an open mind and to not take things too personally. I think a lot of people take things so
What's
personally.
what was
The
the four things?
the
What
four
was it called?
The
The
four
four.
words.
Do you know what I'm talking about? The four enlightenments, four
It's like
enlightenments.
don't take things too personal.
I'm looking it up real quick.
I've never heard of this.
No,
No.
dude,
I
it's
don't
the key. No,
No.
it's the key to living like
it's the
a
key
good
to
life,
life.
apparently.
It's
I
the
don't know.
key to-
I've learned
yeah.
my lesson.
The four.
I won't be making any kind of jokes on here anymore.
We looked it
Fucking-
up last time because we were like talking about it.
Also, I'll make a joke and you'll
I
just
won't laugh.
that's the worst, dude. You ever make a joke and people don't laugh and you just feel embarrassed and want to kill yourself?
How do you think? No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so the four agreements of life. So basically, what the four agreements are is just like tools to use to live like a better life. So the first one is be impeccable with your word. So it's like stand by your word, don't talk shit about anybody else, and to always be true to yourself.
That's where I went wrong.
That's bullet point number one.
Yeah.
Second thing is don't take anything personally.
That's where the comments went wrong.
Yeah, that's where the comments went wrong. And then third is don't make assumptions. That's where
Is that where I went wrong?
I guess that's where both of you guys were wrong again.
That's where
Yeah.
that's where I went wrong.
And then
No, I don't think he's talking about you. I think he's talking about me and the
no, yeah, I'm not talking about you.
Oh.
Yeah.
He's talking about bad people who
Friendly
got-
fire.
Yeah.
She
He
got
said
a stray.
yeah.
She caught a stray right now.
Yeah.
And then the last one is always do your best. Always do your best in everything you do.
I mean, well, then why are you guys getting mad at me?
No, I think I like also making people mad sometimes, if I'm being honest.
It's a little fun.
I think
No,
it's
I mean,
I think it's pretty fun.
it could
it's
be-
fun to be a little
it could,
jokester.
it could be worse, you know. People have said worse things, you know.
Yeah.
But
We talk about all the time. Hulk Hogan. I don't know if everybody knows Hulk Hogan, but Hulk Hogan famously said like
very racist things.
yeah.
He
like,
said
I'm not
and he
even gonna
didn't-
defend what he
didn't
said.
didn't he say like bar for bar, I'm a racist to a degree.
yeah. He did. But that's not the point of what we're bringing up.
Wait,
is that-
yeah, but that's another thing. Kanye can say I love Hitler and we should show sympathy to Nazis, and y'all run to his music. But I make a little
you
joke
can't
at
say
the.
those words, man. The government's gonna shut this shit down. No, but it's actually I think most like I don't know if you knew this, but most like sites they really don't like the term. I mean, you already said it. They don't like the term Nazi or Hitler. Yeah,
sorry.
so it's really hard on like things outside of I think like Twitter to say those things because Elon's made Twitter such like a freedom of speech app. But
Yeah.
anyways, what was I talking about before this? Oh yeah,
Hulk
Hulk
Hogan.
Hogan. The reason I bring up Hulk Hogan is because famously like if the wrestling community has like
blacklisted him.
has blacklisted him, hated him for good reason.
Yeah.
Even wrestling companies have banned him from being
Yeah.
on the show or buying a ticket
Yeah.
as a fan.
If he does make an appearance, he gets booed out of the arena.
But famously, and some of you guys might know this guy, Chris Benoit, he committed a double murder suicide, and he's still very much beloved by the community of the wrestling community.
Yeah.
And I understand it's because people make kind of excuses for him that he had CTE, which I don't know. Do you think that's a valid excuse? If I got CTE, like let's say I played football and what the crazy thing about CTE is that you don't even know you have it until you die because they have to look at your brain and it doesn't come out in X-rays. But anyways, if I had CTE and I murdered like somebody,
you murder your wife and your kids.
Yeah, would you guys forgive me? Like I don't even trying to skew your results. Would you guys actually
your
forgive me?
wife?
I guess it's
and
one
my
of those.
Okay, no, that's too dark. Let's say I just killed a random.
Well, I guess it's one of those things where it's like he was mentally ill and it wasn't him, you know?
I don't know.
That's as far as I'll touch on that, though.
I guess because
I don't know.
You want to hear me?
I don't know.
Yeah, what's? Be careful, bro.
Oh my gosh,
be careful, bro.
No, I have the biggest empathy for people with mental illnesses.
Yeah.
Oh, she was like, "What is he about to say?" I have the biggest empathy for people who are affected in their brain, because in my opinion, one of my biggest fears is that I have some kind of like mental disease when I get older, like dementia or Alzheimer's or anything, because I value not only my ability to think, but my ability to remember stuff. Right. So when I hear of people who have CTE, yes, like the stuff they did is horrific and unforgivable. Right. But I'm like, but if I was in that position and I wasn't who I am, would my family members like forgive me, or would I die and forever be shunned by my entire family? Right. For something that is not even my fault. Right. Yeah. I developed a disease in my brain that made me go ape shit.
Yeah.
Right. So you said you don't. Yeah, that's real. I want your real opinion. Would you forgive me, bro, if I killed a person? And then
I don't know, bro. I don't know.
Julie,
I don't know about that one, bro.
Now I'm even more scared of catching something mentally, because I know, because I think
I get the point of like,
I think
it's not like your fault, right? Because it's like, especially in that circumstance, right?
Yeah,
it's like, because they're wrestlers or like people are athletes, they get hit in the head a lot and it could cause something. So I can see, but it's a very bad thing of like, you murdered people. You know? It's like, I don't know. I think
I
that's
get
just
you.
very,
I get what
like-
you mean.
Like, it's
I just think I have so much empathy for people who are mentally ill, because not only that, but I feel like in society, nobody ever takes them seriously. I mean, Dave Chappelle said that joke recently.
You're spitting.
Where he's like, what? Just because Kanye is mentally ill means that he's allowed to say crazy shit? And Dave Chappelle's like, yes, it does, because he's mentally ill. You know,
like being
but that's different, because we know he is. Like, if you have like, I guess, what is it? CTE?
CTE.
I guess.
It's like, I don't know. It's kind of like,
okay, but then you find out when I die. You open my skull and see.
But he's actually killed some. Like, he actually.
Most people who
someone,
who've gotten CTE usually end up killing someone.
Yeah, like,
what's up?
I just think it's kind of like a slippery slope, right? Because it's like you can kind of do that endlessly of like, because everybody's a result of everything, you know. Everybody's kind of like everybody, the way everybody behaves, racism is learned, it's not genetic, you know. You can kind of do that endlessly with everything, you know. So I think when it comes to stuff like murders and stuff like that, it's affecting other people very harshly, you know. But going back to what I said, you can kind of do that endlessly, and it's kind of one of those things, you know, where it's like, it's a bit of a paradox where it's like, well, because is anybody really to blame for anything? Because it's like maybe I hurt people, but it's like, oh, I was hurt as a kid. Or like with R. Kelly, right?
I get what you mean.
Like with R. Kelly, right? Like he did some monstrous shit, but some monstrous shit was done to him as a kid.
Yeah.
Does that absolve him for his consequences for what he did? I mean, you know what I mean? It's kind of like You know, it's like you get
It's one of I
you're
probably
stuck.
the lack of empathy that comes from people who are mentally ill is because it is such a hard thing to kind of debate, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's just one of those things. I
Well,
think
because the
that
other
like
part is like some people are born with it and other people gain it, right? Like Kanye West, like he wasn't born that way, but
Yeah. Through trauma, you
he hit
sometimes
through a trauma.
get
He
these
yeah
diseases. Yeah.
yeah
it's just
Isn't
really
that insane
it's
too?
just yeah, it's
yeah.
just one of those things. I think like in my opinion, I think it's left to the experts. Like
Oh, I get
I
you.
genuinely would want to hear what like a psychologist would have to say
I
about
get you.
this,
Yeah.
Mhm.
or like a you know because
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little outside my pay grade. And I don't even
Uh,
mean I'm not even saying that because like of what happened with the cartel shit. I just mean genuinely like I have no idea
yeah.
like what
Mhm.
No, I
the
get what you mean. Yeah.
yeah.
Just going back a few steps, thinking about the fact that yeah, Kanye wasn't born with his disease, but he got it. It reminded me of what I told you on the car ride here. Such a fascinating little tidbit that I just wanted to share. Neil deGrasse Tyson recently was on Joe Rogan's podcast,
Mhm,
and he talked about psychedelics, and he said that he's never tried psychedelics. And his reasoning was because he felt as though the human mind barely works as it is, and because he's kind of he's a researcher, like
mhm,
he really wants to push humanity forward. He doesn't want to take anything that will affect his objective like feeling of reality.
mhm,
He's
Mhm.
like, I want everything to be objective.
Mhm.
And he's probably heard all the stories like of like, oh, I saw God, I was an atheist.
mhm,
Have you seen that? People are atheists, and then I think you sent it to me, right?
mhm. And then they
Um,
become believers in something.
yeah. What do you
Uh,
think of that
Really
though? Yeah.
interesting.
what Neil deGrasse Tyson or the
No,
atheism thing?
okay,
The
you kind of both, but at the same time, more specifically,
Um,
an atheist who takes psychedelics and believes in God after.
okay. So to answer both a little bit, I think Neil deGrasse Tyson is spitting. Well, because I feel like because
Oh no,
he
what did I
studied.
do?
because he's a researcher, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like
Yeah,
his mind is very important. Like it's
Mhm.
important for a scientist to be objective. So
yeah.
I understand completely why he's like he wants to stay as objective as possible.
Yeah.
So valid, you know. Uh, when it comes to like people believing in like a higher power of some degree after taking psychedelics, it's pretty interesting. It's very interesting. Like I wonder
What does that mean
what
though?
happens. Like
Like
I don't opposing thought because after I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson say that, and
Mhm.
then you sent me that post of the atheist who then became religious.
mhm,
I'm like, but what if it's just like psychosis? Like,
Mhm.
it's just like psychedelics genuinely like give you this weird
well,
like juice in your brain that all of a sudden you believe in these spiritual realms. And I could talk about this because I
yeah.
actually like
Mhm.
I've experimented myself. Um and I've felt a presence of something bigger than me, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I like to believe that that's objectively true, but uh, that's it. I need to see Neil deGrasse Tyson take like psychedelics too,
I
because I need
just
Okay.
him to debate what that means. Yeah, what
Mhm.
does it mean if an atheist takes psychedelics and then believes in God? Does it
mhm,
mean that like you see something objectively that shouldn't be like possible in our like material world, or is it that it's like no, like you're totally just like losing your shit in your brain?
Yeah.
I mean it could be both. You know? I mean I think it's one of those things where you have to acknowledge that either could be true. You know?
True, true.
Um, I personally, I've always felt that like if you that there's nothing wrong with being religious or spiritual or at
Mhm.
all, but I think everybody should to some degree like uh not accept the reality, but be open to the reality that it could just be all in your head.
Mhm.
You know, like me. I
Yeah,
Yeah.
never, I don't like it. You know,
Yeah.
either there is a God or there isn't.
Mhm.
You know,
yeah,
so
Yeah.
it's kind of like I feel like you should be comfortable flirting with both ideas.
Yeah.
You know, because
yeah,
I feel like if you put all your chips in one,
Mhm.
it's kind of you're
yeah.
setting yourself up to be. You get what I'm trying to get
Yeah.
at?
No,
I
based. Yeah,
I also
that's pretty
feel like
based.
I mean the fact that like we've tried shrooms before, right? And like the experience of it, I feel like depending on the intensity, I would get why someone would kind of like believe in that because it's also like it's psychedelics, right? They make you see shit, right? At least for some people.
Think shit too.
And yeah, and think of a lot of things. So I can see where like they can start believing that. And I get it with like the whole thing with what's his name? Neil.
Neil
DeGrasse
deGrasse
Yeah.
Tyson.
Tyson.
How
You
he's
said
kind of
what's
like
his name? One of the
yeah.
like most famous like
Smoke,
Honestly
smoke the
never heard of
grass
him until
Tyson,
you guys
bro.
started talking about him.
what?
We
Yeah.
talk about him
You
all
don't
the
know who
time.
Neil
Yeah, that's
deGrasse
why.
Tyson
Yeah.
is?
No.
He's the guy. He does Star Talk and he does what
No, bro, I'm
Cosmos?
telling you that I didn't
But
know about him.
you know, Bad Bunny's like new color of his car, right?
No.
I know. I'm just making one a joke.
No. Bro, I don't follow anyone. I'm telling you. What was it saying?
You know, Degrassi Tyson.
But what was it saying about that?
He was saying that he doesn't want
Oh
to take
yeah,
any
but it's like
psychedelics. 'Cause-
yeah. So like, I feel like in psychedelics, it just like very much like alters your brain and what you see. So I can see why like if someone who's like at the certain intensity of however much you took shrooms, that you can start seeing shit. Because you said you saw shit. I also saw shit, but I wasn't like
I saw
there's a
him, bro.
god.
You saw
him.
you saw the guy.
I saw the guy.
You
I
the
saw
big,
the big guy in the
you
sky.
saw the big boss. You
He
saw
was
the,
talking to me and telling me to come through, and
saw
I was
the-
kind of scared, and I was like,
you
"I'm
saw,
okay."
You saw the
B."
man in charge.
I was patting the ground around me, like I think I'm okay, just chilling.
Well, I
here.
also sometimes wonder if it's like if it's one of those things where it's like if you want to see a ghost, you'll see a ghost. You know?
Yeah,
Where it's like
true.
where
Yeah.
it's kind of like
Well,
because the mind's a very powerful thing, you know?
Well, because
It's-
they even say like if you stare at the mirror for a good while, like you start to see shit in the darkness because
Yeah.
like your mind is so powerful that it'll make like
Yeah,
it'll make things up in your
yeah.
head.
You know what she's talking about?
I've seen the Instagram posts.
I've
Uh,
only ever heard of these things. Like I've never
Right,
seen
I think you're
anything.
right too. That you sometimes your mind just kind of plays tricks on you. Because I remember recently when I took a trip, um, I I remember one of the things I saw in the clouds was I saw all the clouds turn into like these Aztec Maya like drawings
Mhm.
of like gods, and like it was as if I was looking, you know, in Black Panther, Wakanda
Oh,
Forever.
when he draws the
Yeah, when he's drawing it, it was a lot like that. It was
Yeah.
basically just like a lot of art like that. And I was like, there's no way this is just objectively what I'm seeing, right?
Yeah.
Like this is because of my like what I've seen in my
Yeah.
life that makes me see this.
Mhm.
Because I remember when I did them at the beach, I started seeing kind of like the Egyptian, like the way that they have like their art and all that. That's how I saw it.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
also saw like the indigenous, like
Yeah.
the Mayan and the Aztec like art,
Yeah.
like in the sky and in the water.
It
I
was
saw like
beautiful,
a
bro. I
face,
couldn't
yeah.
stop staring at it.
But
I
I
was like,
remember the whole
"Whoa."
time I was like, I feel like the only reason I see this is because I've seen images of this before. Like it's already in my
Yeah,
head, so like
exactly.
my head is just creating it like in
Well-
multiple versions of it.
Well, I think it's interesting too because it's like yeah, like a modern like the guy on Joe Rogan, right, where he's like, I was an atheist and now I believe in God. It's interesting because some people hypothesize that religion came to be like that, that the burning bush in the story of Moses was ayahuasca, right?
Yeah.
And that he, you know, he saw whatever, yada yada yada.
He was just tripping out on some
So
psychedelics.
so it's kind of one of
Yeah.
those things like which came first, the chicken or the egg, you know?
Yeah, that's what I always think
Who
about.
you know, like who tripped
Who
first?
tripped-
Yeah, who tripped first?
Who
Well, yeah,
tripped first?
because
Yeah.
Stone 8 theory?
because
Yeah.
it's like they're shrooms, right? You would think like maybe like an indigenous person was like looking for food and he accidentally ate like a
I have a
psychedelic
question.
like
I have
Yeah,
a
go
question
ahead, go
off
ahead.
topic, and it's I'm joking. Like I'm,
Oh my
I'm-
God.
It's
like,
a joke.
like is it like? Do you think it's morally wrong, like to give like an animal psychedelics? Like, let's say you're just some hippie guy and you have a dog
Mhm.
and you feed your dog like
Shrooms.
shrooms when
Shrooms?
you take a trip. Is it bad? I don't
Um,
do that, and I don't
I guess
think
two side
anybody should
things
do that.
is like I don't even know if it affects animals the same way that
Well, because
that we do.
animals in the wild take psychedelics. They'll lick poisons or eat
Mm.
fruits and chew them up, and they'll
Like a
trip out.
moose can get drunk off an apple.
Well, like so, animals in the wild, I don't know that they do it in the same we do, but they do
They
trip
kind
Yeah,
of
out. You know?
experience, yeah.
animals get drunk. I don't know
yeah.
if you guys knew that, but animals get
So
drunk.
I don't know. Is is that wrong? Like, which let's say you met it like a hippie,
Dude,
right?
what if like imagine giving your dog psychedelics and then you see them staring at themselves in the mirror like, damn, I'm
I'm a
for real's a
dog.
dog. Yeah.
Because like I wonder, do you think like what would you do? Like let's say if like
You know,
It
if you-
depends on
like,
how
what-
you're doing it.
what would
too.
you let's say one day like all right, let's take the moral out of it. Let's say one day you have some shrooms and they just fall out of your pocket and your dog just scarfs them all up,
Yeah, okay.
and he takes a heavy dose, and just afterwards your dog's just like he's just a different guy
Bark.
afterwards. Yeah.
Bark.
Exactly.
Well, I've seen when people talk about like their dogs eat like edibles or
yeah,
something.
pop brownies or something
like that.
Yeah. but it's like on accident.
I
like-
wonder.
I think I would just if
and you could see that their eyes are like swollen.
I would kill to see like what a dog sees if they took like,
yeah,
because I wonder what the fuck they see.
Mm.
or
know?
would think,
Like,
you
do you
know.
think they
Mhm.
see the same shit that people see? Like, do you think they
I,
see?
if it affected them the same, then yeah, I think so. If it affects them the same, I also think that if in that scenario it happened where I just dropped some shrooms and then my dog ate them, I feel like I'd do my best to take care of my dog. I'd
Mhm.
probably put like his bed and be like, "Well, bro, like I'm gonna
We're
be your
going
guy."
through it.
What if, so like would you
I feel like they'd probably throw up though.
would
They'd probably
you
try
would
to
Yeah.
like
throw
start
up.
eating grass and throw up?
Yeah, I think they'd probably
Would
try
they
to
though?
do
Like,
that.
what
they
if
feel
they're
Well,
just
yeah, because
nauseous?
they're more instinct of like, fuck, I don't feel good,
Yeah.
so like
They don't know that they're taking
Yeah.
something.
but like what all right, what would you do if like your dog was like all playful before, but now he's just kind of like
be like,
He's just always
he's,
thinking.
he's just kind of
always
introspective, you know? He's just kind of like he doesn't really but he's still a good dog, you know?
Bark,
He's-
bark, bark. He's just like a serious ass dog.
Like, have you seen those?
He says
have you
bark
have
you,
you,
you
guys-
try playing fetch with him,
have-
he's like,
I don't really want to play fetch.
yeah. He just walks away. His
Like,
little,
have you
like,
seen
paddle.
those videos of bears when they sit in water and they play like this? They, like-
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
so what if your dog was just a little more like he's just a little more like
Aw.
I wonder who would be the best animal to give psychedelics to. It'd probably have to be like dolphins, no? Because they have a big brain.
oh, that'd
Right?
be interesting because they're underwater. What
Dude,
about
I feel like they would
like
understand.
what about like a chimp?
a
that's
chimp?
like-
Nah.
That's
I don't
number
think so.
2 though. That's like
Yeah,
that's,
but I think physically, but I don't think about up here. I don't think
they're
apes
pretty
are up
smart.
here.
Chimp. Well, look, because you know some of them know like what about one of those chimps that they
They
taught
can
sign language? Like one of the gorillas that like I wonder what they
That
would
way he
say.
can tell us like what's
Well,
going on.
he'd be like, "What the fuck is going on?"
He's like trying to sign.
He's
Oh, his
like-
fingers are melting.
He's like going like this, like what's going on?
I guess it's like going. Even though you said we would move on, but answering the moral question, I don't think it'd be right. Just because I don't think any. Even though there's animals that come close to our intelligence, I think for the most part they just be like, "What the fuck?" They wouldn't get what happened.
What's the
And
sense?
all
what's-
we
or
leave
like
them is trauma.
or like an elephant? Because what I've said it before that elephants like experience PTSD and stuff like that. Because I think the
Yeah,
emotional
uh-huh,
part of
uh-huh.
their brains is as large or larger than people.
yeah.
So I wonder what an elephant would see, or like a
More empathy. Oh my god. It'd probably see
Yeah,
like
they'd be sad.
you know.
do you think we'll ever have the technology like in Meet the Robinsons where they can project your
what they're
your
thinking?
thoughts? Yeah, because then I'm sure. Well, I mean, if
It-
I'm thinking it, some guy in Germany or in Russia, like in the 1930s, probably did it already.
It reminds me of AI. It reminds me of like it'll probably AI will be partnered with that and it'll auto generate the memory based off pieces and fragments.
Oh, like it's like, oh,
Mm.
this neuron's firing in this part of the brain, so I can guess what there might
Yeah,
be
what they're
thinking.
really
Yeah.
thinking of and what it looks
Probably.
like. Yeah, right.
Probably,
And
yeah.
probably like helping it feed the machine.
That'd be scary in court, right? If you're like actually like if you're lying and they're like, all right, we'll put the AI on you and see if you're actually telling the truth.
This is okay. This is a good topic actually to
Damn.
segue into the final segment of today's pod. What do you guys think about the whole AI generated art?
I'm personally not a
been-
fan.
I've been
but,
seeing a lot of just well, not a lot of it, but I saw recently someone saying that it's like stolen art from like other artists that it's taken.
Yeah,
from,
but there's
like,
multiple websites, not all of them. And the one you're talking about,
Mhm.
I know that's the one that everybody's making like selfies about, right?
Yeah.
That's the one, but not all AIs are technically doing that.
Mm.
Some in a way they kind of are, but
Mhm.
that at least the selfie one that you're talking about is the biggest
Oh,
one that is, yeah, because
But that's the one
free
that's
one.
everywhere, no? Or is
The
it just
biggest one is
multiple ones?
Dolly 2.
Oh.
Dolly E2.
I also heard you have to pay for some of them.
That one is
so-
yeah, Dolly 2.
Because that's
It's not only you have to pay for, but you have to get on a wait list. Right now there's you have to wait a long time to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are doing it.
Yeah.
A lot of people are doing those.
No, it's only a matter of time before it's an app or some shit. You know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's gonna get really good. I'm personally not a fan. But do whatever you want.
Why?
I mean, I try to think about it in the sense of like, because when we went to school, we learned about the camera, right? And how people are like, oh, this is gonna be the end of what was it? Or like talking sound, where it's like, oh, this is talking in movies, right? This is the end of real cinema and stuff like that. So I try not to be like a stickler in that sense of being
Too
like
doomsday.
too doomsdaying of like, oh, this is the end of because I'm sure it'll be a great
Original art and
it'll be a
shit.
great tool and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But for me, I just think it's kind of gonna be. I think it's only a matter of time before it's abused, like everything is. And for me, it's kind of scary in the sense of like I said, it's only a matter of time before like AI can look at your Spotify playlist and like, all right, we'll generate a song that we think you'll like, and no artist wrote that. It's just the computer wrote that.
Mhm.
Or it'll be a matter of time before it's like, oh, you liked all these movies? Well, we'll make a show for you specifically for you. And I'm sure it'll happen in 50, 70 years. But to me, it's kind of like it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, I can see it being as a tool, but I also see it being like, because it's much cheaper to do that. Like, what if
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
company could just say, oh, generate me a poster for this movie? What about all the artists that would have killed for an
Mhm.
opportunity to make
Yeah.
a poster for that
True.
movie?
True.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, AI generate me some clothes that I thought would look cool based on all the fashion trends and
Mhm.
something that'll sell, you know? And yeah, I mean, maybe it'll be good for business. What about all the people who are dying to like make fashion or stuff like that, you know?
You know, I've
Uh,
seen people use it already on dating apps, but in a different way. It's not the AI generated art, but they use AI of like, hey AI, I like this girl, and he like describes what she looks like. I met her on a dating app. Give me the best like first compliment I can give, and it spit out like a bunch of like options, and they were all like paragraphs. And he's like, no, I need something short and hornier,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it does it like and it's like
yeah,
perfect, and he sends it. And people are talking about like this in a way this is so dystopian because it's gonna evolve into just both sides using it, and it's
yeah.
just two AIs having conversation for
Right?
people.
Yeah.
Um, and another thing that people brought up, which is real life proof of AI already kind of taking people's jobs the way artists are afraid
Mhm.
they're going to take their job, is that famously this already happened when Google introduced Google Translator and all these translators, the AIs that translate everything for you.
Yeah.
The the workplace of translators, people who would do it by hand and like studied and went to the countries to learn, they lost all their jobs because
Yeah.
nobody wanted to pay like thousands of dollars to a personal translator. Like I'll
Mhm.
just use a free Google
You
like
know?
translator,
No, yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
and it's pretty common for us to then discard that. I mean, obviously nobody really thinks about that.
Yeah.
Well, and it's one of those things too where it's like again, I'm not trying to be a stickler or an asshole, but it's like you see it with places like Amazon or stuff like that where it's like it's only a matter of time before there's a robot that can do everything the person could do and
Mhm.
and they don't got to pay him.
Yeah.
And so then the real jobs that people actually need, they'll be like, oh, well, I'll pay you like $5. It's like,
Yeah.
if you take it or don't, because I'll use the AI instead, you know, stuff like
Mhm.
that. So that for me is why I'm kind of like, I wish it's one of those things where it's like we're so preoccupied with whether or not we could do it, we don't really stop and ask to think if we should, you
Hmm.
Yeah.
know. But I'd love to hear the opinions of like a developer and stuff like that, what they think, because you're afraid of what you don't know. I can
Mhm.
acknowledge that, but to me, I only really see uh, it getting abused and replacing a lot of people and
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah,
that.
Well, cause there was already I remember there was a movie. I forget what movie it was, but it's like a robot that just puts caps on like toothpaste or something. And I mean, it's done by like people. They put them
Mhm.
and on that, and then after the company invests in like a machine, and the machine just does it automatically.
I know what
And so
movie
then
you're
they
talking about.
fire. I forget what movie it is
It's Willy
though.
Wonka and the
Is it
Chocolate
that one?
Factory.
I was thinking.
Yeah.
I was like, is it that one? But
So
I wasn't sure, so I wasn't gonna say it. But
No,
yeah, it's
yeah,
that one, and then they get fired.
yeah.
And that when did that movie come out?
That
Like,
movie came out like in 2006
no,
or
yeah. So
yeah,
something.
for me, I think it's like, but no, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I definitely see like a lot of like
Amazing things
a
that
lot
could
of amazing
happen.
things
yeah,
that could happen. But for me,
yeah,
it's just like the way the world works. They
hmm,
prioritize money
Yeah,
over like
yeah,
people.
people. So that's the direction I see it taking.
hmm,
Because like I
So,
mean, like let's say somebody draws a picture and they're like, animate this for me. That's awesome, you know. Like it can
yeah,
yeah,
open the doors for a lot of people in different art forms,
yeah,
or let's say like somebody's writing a song and they're like, oh, I don't really like this sound. Like what would work better here? Or or
yeah,
revise this paragraph or something like that.
hmm,
I
yeah,
can understand how that's a helpful tool.
yeah.
yeah,
But to me, it's like I don't think it ever is gonna stop there. It's just gonna be come to the point where it's just AI doing everything.
hmm,
Yeah.
And yeah, it's
I think I think if it ever got to that point though, it'd have to be regulated, you know, it'd have to be stopped. I think the United States, it's so weird because we haven't yet really regulated a technology, have we? Even the internet, despite all the horrid shit that people complain about, the government's never stepped in and done anything.
would you guys ever vote for an AI politician? Like let's say
yeah.
somebody's like, well, it's gonna make all the best decisions for us. Would you guys vote for it? This is far future, and I understand that like AI can't do that right now. But
Dude,
like,
they made an episode of this, Love, Death, and Robots,
oh really?
the yogurt. Yeah, like they, It's called the yogurt. The yogurt's like this computer that like knows everything, and it gives humans the plan to how to fix everything in society and make basically the earth a utopia. But because we're humans and we do human errors, we don't follow the plan like line for line, and we end up just making shit worse.
Yeah.
And so then the yogurt steps back in and he's like, fine, like I guess I'll just lead you guys and do everything for you. And then Earth does become like a utopia. Um, I guess my biggest fear would just be like, is it gonna get hacked? Is it because in my opinion, bro, I've always been very like hell yeah, like whatever, like let's do something new. So I would vote. I would vote for an AI generated candidate. So when they become president, they're gonna love me. You see, big brain.
When they,
Big brain.
no, yeah,
When they take over.
yeah, when they take over.
Oh, Steve always fucked with us, you know.
Yeah.
So I think everything will be cool, bro. I think everything will be cool.
I mean,
You
I don't
think
know.
so?
To me, I actually I agree. I think it could end up being the next atomic bomb, in my opinion.
AI.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Because it's like, I mean, come on, like you think they're not going to use it for weapons and shit? Like, it's just, I don't know. For me, I would love to get in a room of people who know what they're talking about when it comes to like developing and shit like that, and pick their brains about what they think.
I mean, I've looked into like just what precautions we as like humans and researchers have taken, and famously before what's his name? I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. The guy in the wheelchair, the smartest.
Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking, of course. Damn, disrespectful. But anyways, Stephen Hawking, before he died, remember he famously got a bunch of scientists together to sign the document about warning the government that like artificial intelligence is one of the greatest threats to like humanity. He literally before he died, he was like, guys, like I know I'm gonna die, but just please,
do something about that.
yeah, just like please look into this. So I'm telling you, I think the government is taking precautions, which is weirdly because the only time I can think of right now in recent memory of when the government stepped in to stop something technological was TikTok, when Trump wanted to get rid of TikTok because he thought it was manipulating the American people, which could still be true. But
the something that I think will also hold it back is when it starts to like, because I don't know if this is true, but I remember watching an interview where somebody says that like right now AI is about the intelligence of a cockroach. And slowly it'll progress to like a mouse, then a cat, then a dog, then a monkey, then a person,
and then accelerate,
then indefinitely, you know. I don't know, because I feel like it's one of those philosophical existential things. I think the religious nuts are gonna come in clutch with this one.
Because this is what this is why we've kept you here.
This is why we haven't traded them. Because you know how because I feel like stem cell research, all that, they're really holding us back with that. That could be that could be amazing.
Could literally change the face of the planet.
Could change the face of the planet, but they're like, oh, it's a life and shit like that. I won't get into that, but
I almost want to get into that because oh my god, yeah, you're right. I'm not gonna get into it,
but that's why I think. I guess I'm hoping a little bit that the one time I want them to step in is a little now, but who knows? I could just be a bitter.
I'll tell you, if anything, the government will step in, and even if AI has its singularity where it becomes smarter than humans, I like to believe that everything that we're scared of is such a human thought, and that if a computer became intelligent, it'd be like, I'm not gonna kill you guys. What the fuck? Like,
it could be.
You guys like.
I mentioned it before that somebody said that AI could be smart enough to have already exist, but not reveal itself because it's afraid we'll unplug it.
Well, because didn't you say that happened? That supposedly someone worked at a company.
It was Facebook, like, right? Where they made AI. It didn't come conscious, but it started doing some shit that they didn't understand. Like it started talking in a language to
and
another
they fired
AI.
the employee who was the whistleblower. Yeah,
and
it basically what it was that it was giving conscious decisions that went against its code that they had originally given it, which is what like the guy who was working with it was completely baffled by, because it seemed as though not only did it retain memory of like being in that exact computer, but it started developing a personality and like wants and fears.
Really?
Yeah, this is what it was.
It said it feared something. No, that they
it feared being unplugged. Yeah,
it
feared like talking too much because they're scared that it's gonna be unplugged.
Yeah.
Well, because it's like, I don't know.
It's a real thing. Look at
it. AI is interesting to me because it's like when people talk about like the singularity and indefinite knowledge, I'm like, that's like basically God. Like,
as far as we know.
Did God create man so we could create him again? Is God just an AI?
I saw this is actually, since we're talking about people who are qualified to talk about this, I saw two scientists talking about it in a podcast. One of the scientists thinks that like is the reason that humans are here is our goal. It's so funny because it relates to the reel that we made where I was like, is the purpose of life to just spread across the universe? He talks about how it's more consciousness. Like, are we eventually just going to make the universe consciousness? Is conscious? Does the universe want to become conscious? Does it want to like become
Interesting.
like aware of what it is?
Interesting.
And then is that the goal and like the meaning of life, I guess you could say. So these are all questions that like
guess-
that honestly the AI could help us answer.
I'm okay with all this happening as long as I'm not around anymore.
It's too mind blowing.
If I've checked out, go crazy, you know.
Go crazy.
But if I'm still here, relax a little, you know.
You're like, I'm not trying to see all that.
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
it's
I
just
think everything will be cool, bro.
no, probably everything will be cool. You say?
Yeah, and I think that's a good note to end this episode on, guys. Next week is our final episode.
Yes.
I hope everybody tunes in. It's gonna be
It'll be a good one.
It'll be a good one.
Hopefully, you're not still mad at us or whatever. But
Yeah, or I don't say anything that to this podcast like, oh my god.
Yeah,
you know?
that people weren't mad.
But
at
I think at the end of the day, everything's gonna be cool, and I hope you guys tune in next week. Hope you guys have a good Thursday.
Yeah. Make sure y'all follow us at Primos Chidos Radio Show on Instagram and TikTok. Make sure you also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Primos Chidos. We'll see y'all next time. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. Bye, y'all.